You think the worst punishment in human history was physical. You are completely wrong. It was never the rack or the bull or the spike. It was a silent calculation. Your ancestors didn't just survive, they designed it. And the exact same circuit is still humming inside your chest right now. Before we go down this particular rabbit hole, if you have ever felt a sudden spike of panic when you realize everyone in the room is quietly watching you, drop what that feels like in the comments. I mean, literally type it out, because that exact sensation is the doorway to everything we are about to unpack. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Let us start with the basic hardware. Human brains are not reality processors, they are prediction engines. We do not just experience the moment, we forecast the social consequence. When early bands of Homo sapiens gathered around open fire, they were not just sharing roasted tubers or trading stories. They were running a continuous threat assessment simulation on each other. Every glance, every hesitation, every shift in posture, it was all data. Christopher Boehm spent decades tracking this exact phenomenon. His work on reverse dominance hierarchies maps out how long before kings or courts or written law, punishment was the group's antivirus software. If someone hoarded meat, broke a core taboo, or threatened the band's fragile cohesion, the tribe did not just quietly exile them. They made an example, and it was not born from malice, it was born from survival. And that is when scientists realized they were looking at human cruelty all wrong. We were not sadistic, we were debugging. The brain treats social friction like a system error. Punishment is just the reboot sequence. Fast forward a few thousand years, the fire becomes the town square, the tribe becomes the state. And the software gets an upgrade it never asked for. Elaine Scarry mapped this out with brutal clarity in her foundational work on pain and political power. She documented exactly how public punishment shifted from a functional social reset to a theatrical display of absolute authority. Flaying, the brazen bull, scaphism. We catalogue them like museum artifacts, scrolling past them with a detached curiosity. But the real horror is not the iron or the oil or the insects. The horror is the architecture, the crowd, the waiting. Tor Wager ran functional MRI studies on pain anticipation that completely dismantled the old neurological models. He found the brain registers the dread of coming suffering with the exact same intensity as the physical damage itself. The amygdala does not care if the blade is real or just approaching. It fires, the circuit overloads, cortisol floods the bloodstream, and for the person in the center, time dilates until every second stretches into a lifetime. For the watchers, dopamine spikes. We are hardwired to stare at the crash. It is not a moral failing, it is a biological directive, and we do not even know it. But here's where it gets actually strange. You would logically think we would evolve out of this, right? Progress, civilization, better medicine, faster Wi-Fi. We did not. We just made it invisible. The 2018 cross-cultural study out of Oxford tracked compliance and trauma markers across thousands of historical punishment records. Short-term group obedience spiked, predictably, but intergenerational stress markers followed the same spike and refused to drop. Cortisol does not respect a timeline. It pulls, it echoes, it rewrites baseline chemistry for generations who never saw the square. We traded the rack for the ledger, we traded the spike for the silent treatment. We called it modern, and also have you noticed how absurd this is? We built entire legal and corporate systems on the assumption that humans are rational actors making logical choices, while our nervous systems are still screaming about exile in the savannah. The mismatch is not a bug. It is the entire operating system. If you're still with me and this is starting to rewire how you see every awkward social interaction you have ever had, hit share. Seriously, send this to someone who still thinks human nature is a blank slate waiting to be politely educated. It helps spread these insights to others who need to hear them, because what comes next explains why the worst punishments never actually went away. They just changed address and they moved into your living room. Think about this. And also, do not think about this too hard, or you will get anxious. Robert Sapolsky has spent his entire career measuring stress in primate troops. He tracked baboons in the wild and found that in rigid hierarchies, the subordinate bodies show identical physiological decay to victims of systematic psychological abuse. The same ulcers, the same hypertension, the same sleep collapse, the exact same cortisol baselines. The body keeps the receipt even when the mind cannot find the store. We like to think punishment is a historical artifact locked behind glass. It is not. It is an active feedback loop. For 30,000 years, every human who ever lived calibrated their behavior to the threat of collective disapproval. And now you are doing it too, which is either comforting or terrifying depending on your coffee intake. You scroll through a feed and your pulse spikes at a single negative comment. You sit in a quarterly meeting and your shoulders lock when the manager goes quiet. You feel the exact same physiological cascade as your ancestor facing the fire. The machinery is identical. The stakes just got lower, or at least we tell ourselves they did. But here's the part that keeps scientists up at night, and also probably you. We do not just endure punishment, we request it. The human brain craves resolution to social tension so deeply it will manufacture justice out of thin air. Unpunished transgression creates cognitive dissonance so severe it mimics physical illness. That is why true crime documentaries pull hundreds of millions of views without advertising. That is why justice movements demand public reckonings even when the legal system says otherwise. We are not addicted to violence, we are addicted to closure. The same neural pathway that flared when your ancestors pointed at the rule breaker flares when you read about a corrupt official finally facing consequences. The circuit demands balance. It demands the loop closes, and when it does not, the system glitches, anxiety becomes background radiation, cynicism becomes the default setting. Reality starts feeling off. You feel like the rules have broken because to your nervous system they literally have. Here's what is actually weird and also kind of horrifying. The transition from physical torture to psychological control was not a moral awakening. It was an efficiency upgrade. The brain learns faster through anticipation than through aftermath. The state realized it did not need to break the body if it could just keep the mind waiting. Solitary confinement is not a modern invention. It is an ancient protocol running on updated hardware. The brain, deprived of social feedback, starts generating its own threats. It hallucinates structure where there is none. It turns inward and eats itself. And we do not even know it, which is probably for the best, because if we did, we would have to ask why we still fund it, why we still normalize it, and why we still vote for it. In smaller, quieter ways, the mice did not have a choice. We still do, but the choices are really limited, and one of them is usually more screen time. If this has made you question the invisible architecture around you, subscribe for more deep dives into why our ancient wiring keeps glitching in the modern world. I'm mapping the mismatch so you do not have to feel like you're breaking when you're actually just buffering. The same thing that happened to them is happening to you right now, and also your ancestors are probably judging you. We built empires on the promise that suffering could be calibrated, measured, justified. But you cannot calibrate a nervous system evolved for 300 members of a tribe. You overload it, you fracture it. And the worst punishment in human history was never the physical one. It was the realization that we are trapped inside a feedback loop of our own design. We invented the spectacle to control the group. The group absorbed it. The group normalized it. The group demands it still. You scroll. You wait, you brace for the drop, the circuit fires, the body remembers, the story repeats, you think you escaped the square, you just brought it inside, and maybe you should sleep better or not.